Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Hernandez. I am a photographer and Photoshop artist from Western Kentucky. And this is part one of my three-part series of how, step by step, how I created this composite of Titans strong safety George Wilson. So I'm going to walk you through the three main steps in a composite like this. We're going to do the extraction of the subject. We're going to prepare the background, which includes replacing the sky with this. And then we're going to blend the images together to create this final image. So real quick before I get started, um, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, matthernandezphotography.com. And I've got all my social media links on there, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, 500px. You can also see my portfolio on there. So you can check that out whenever you have time. So, okay, all right. So this first part is going to be how to extract the subject and my process for that. So let's get going here. Okay, this is the raw image straight out of camera, and it's very important to shoot in raw because whenever, at least for me, whenever I go through my composites, blending them, I use a lot of adjustment layers and blending modes. And when you do that, you build up density in the shadows and highlights. So what you want to do, the first thing here, and I'm also in Lightroom 4, this is how I catalog and organize all of my images, and I process a lot of them to begin with in Lightroom. You don't have to use Lightroom, but I think it's a great way to organize everything. So, okay, let's get going here. So first of all, you're looking at this. Um, you can see some detail in his shirt here, but you're already losing a little bit. It's a little bit dark, and I know that I'm going to build up a lot of density going forward. So first thing I'm going to do is just open up this shadow slider all the way to the right. So there you go, a lot of detail in there now, and it's flat, but that's what we want to start out because we're going to, like I said, stack stuff on top of each other and just really build up a lot of contrast as we go. So highlights don't look bad, but I'm going to go ahead and move this highlight slider on the right over here to the left to darken it down to about probably -25. That's a good place to start. I feel like this is a little bit underexposed, so we're gonna up the exposure to about 0.25. Okay, all right. So now looking at this, I think we're pretty close to being ready to open it in Photoshop and start the extraction process. I do notice a little bit of a problem here. This is a 3-light setup. I've got a softbox here, I've got another one to the left, and then I've got an octa kind of to the right of camera here for fill. I ended up moving the softbox on the left behind him over here, and I think I liked that lighting setup better, but um, this was one of the first frames we captured. It ended up being the best one of this running series, and I really wanted to edit it. Um, so that's what we went with, and there is a problem here, but I'm going to show you a way to get around that. But to start out, there's a little bit of flare, which adding flare and light sources in your images, I think, help make them more dynamic and interesting. And I try to do that with just about every composite. Add some kind of light source in there. So right away, I see this, and it's a little bit, there's a little bit of flare here. It's a little bit blown out, but I think that with this image that we're going to use for our background, this sky is relatively boring. So we're probably going to go in and replace that. And I've got a cloud library with a sunset that's going to work perfect. So I know that I can put this sun behind him in the final image and kind of make that flare look a little bit more intentional right there. So that doesn't really bother me that much, but it's a little bit strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my adjustment brush on the right. I'm in the develop panel here. I'm going to click it. I'm going to set everything back to 0, and then I'm going to slide my highlights all the way to the left. I've got my brush feathered here quite a bit. You can go down here to feather. I've got it at 100, and then float 100, and then I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and you can do that with your left bracket key to make that brush a little bit smaller. All right, now I'm going to press the space bar, zoom in here, go back up on the brush. So I've got my highlight slider all the way to the left. So I'm going to take out some of this flare here. I don't want to take out all. I can't take out all of it because it's a little bit blown out. But it's a little bit too strong. So I'm going to take some of this off of his hand. I'm just clicking and painting here in a few areas that I feel like it could just come down just a little bit on his back here. All right, that's probably pretty good. Okay, now go down here and close my adjustment brush. Okay, now we're ready to bring it into Photoshop and start the extraction process. So I'm on a Mac. I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, and I'm going to try to mention those every time I do them. I apologize to you PC users. I don't know what the shortcuts are for PCs, but I'm pretty sure you could probably look that up fairly easily to see what the equivalent is. So we're going to come down here to the image, Control click, go to Edit in, Photoshop CS6 right here, or you can press Command E. All right, so here we go. And this is going to open up in Photoshop. And as you can see, I already have the image open here because I've already prepared I've partially prepared it for the extraction. So I'm going to close that one I just opened. It's the same image though, just a slight difference here. Okay. So with Photoshop CS6, one of the big tools that people love to use, especially for composites, is the quick selection tool over here on the left. The little brush with the little dots around it. You can press W for the keyboard shortcut, and it's in there with the magic wand, but you want to select the quick selection tool. So again, I'm going to use my left and right brackets make your brush smaller and bigger. So left bracket makes your brush smaller, right makes it bigger. So I'm going to press left bracket to go a little bit smaller here. Okay. So a lot of people would just go in here and start selecting him, and I wasn't able. Usually when I do a composite, I will shoot on seamless paper. I wasn't able to here. I wasn't able to get my hands on some, so we had to make do with what we had. Now, luckily, the background is fairly neutral, so it's not a huge deal. But the extraction process is typically a little bit easier if you can shoot on seamless paper, but I'm going to show you a way to kind of get around that a little bit. Okay, so I like to use the quick selection tool, but I'm not going to use it as my main extraction tool here, and I'm going to show you why. Go over here up to the top, select the far left brush. Okay, you can also click on the brush properties here. You can make it bigger, smaller, adjust the hardness, the spacing. I usually go to 100% hardness. All right, so this is a fairly complicated cutout because of his fingers here. His arms are separated, his legs, his shoelaces here. That is going to take quite a bit of work to go in with the quick selection tool to clean up. And I'm going to show you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've got a fairly small brush here. I'm just going to start painting. I'm going to click and hold and then drag around the area that I want to make my selection for. All right, and a lot of you are already familiar with this tool and it works really good, but I'm going to show you why in this instance I'm not going to use it as my main tool. Okay, so you can see here it's doing a pretty good job of selecting his hand, detecting those edges. Go in here and try to clean it up a little bit, make sure we're all the way to the edge. Okay, here's the problem. In here in between his fingers, I'm going to press Z to zoom, my zoom tool, click to zoom in. All right, as you can see, it didn't get this area here. That's a pretty tight squeeze right there, a pretty sharp corner in between his fingers. And press W again to go back to my tool, my quick selection tool here. Left bracket to make the brush smaller. Okay, so you can hold the Option key and you see that little negative sign come up. All right, that means you're going to take away the selection you've already got. So I'm going to go in here and paint that away. All right. Okay, go in here, get that. Okay. Okay, now, as you can see, that's not a perfect selection, and that's such a tight squeeze, that's kind of hard to get into right there. And it's even honestly kind of hard to tell where the background is because his finger's got a little highlight on it there. See, now, that's going to be a problem, I can already tell. Okay, so what we're going to do is, all right, so we've got our selection. I'm not going to do this whole image because I'm just going to show you this one part. This is the main problem area. It's also going to be the same thing down by his feet. But anytime you have, hands spread apart, arms, legs, it's a lot more challenging to use this tool. Now, if you were doing this waist up and he had his arms crossed, there wasn't a gap in between his arms and his body, anything like that, I might be more inclined, if you were on a solid background, I might be more inclined to just use the quick selection tool. But in this case, this is probably not going to work as good as another tool I'm going to use. Okay, so now always make sure you've got auto enhance checked also. You're going to hit refine edge. Okay, Now your refine edge dialog is going to come up. Over here in your view, I typically use overlay. I also use on black, which is going to show your extraction on black, and then on white. All right, but I like overlay to start with because you can see the background, you can see your mask, and you can kind of see them overlaid, so you can get an idea of what you're going to be picking up. Okay. Okay, so right here, tell didn't get all of his finger. I'm going to select my brush here, make it a little bit smaller. I usually start with smart radius checked, radius of 15, feather at 0.3 pixels. That's a guideline. It's not a rule. You know, I feel like that gives me a pretty good starting point. You don't have to do that. You can figure out if there's I don't think there's any magic setting though. I think that you know, you could pretty much start in a number of different areas, and then you've kind of got to adjust it depending on the image, because every image is going to be a little bit different. So the way that this works is you select your brush, and then you're going to paint over the areas that it didn't select. So let's go ahead and paint in here. Let it work. Let go. Okay. See, now that actually took away a little bit more of his fingers. And now you can tell there's a little bit of fogginess here. I'm going to go back to my view mode. See, it looks like I'm black. Now that's going to be pretty hard. That's what your extraction is going to look like at this point. That's going to be pretty hard to clean up. What you're going to have to do is, okay, I'm going to go ahead and select this. All right, see your output 2 here. I always select a new layer with layer mask. Well, not always, but in this instance, that's what I'm going to do. So that's going to create a new layer with this mask on it. So I'm going to click OK. Okay, now I'm going to click on my original background layer and go to Layer, New, Layer, and then hit OK. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Fill. I'm going to fill it with black. And that's just so we can get a good contrast and see what our mask looks like. All right, that's just a solid black layer. Okay, so you got a lot of fogginess in here. So now what you'd have to do is come over here to your brush. All right, so you've got your layer here, and then you've got a mask. All right, that little white part is where the mask is. The black is where the layer is concealed. So the way that you can reveal or conceal more of the mask is you select your brush tool. Go over here to the left, select your brush tool, and we've got 2 big ones, so I'm going to make it smaller here. All right, press enter. Okay, you can press D to go to your default colors down here on the bottom left. You always want white and black whenever you're painting on your mask. White reveals, black conceals. So what you're going to have to do is go in here and paint and clean up all this. See how the edge of his fingers are foggy. There's all this fogginess going in between his fingers. Okay, I don't personally like to work like that because you have to select the right hardness for the brush. You've got to make sure your lines are straight when you paint on this mask. This is going to need some cleanup. To me, that just takes too long. It's too inconsistent. Like the way that I paint with my brush is just, I don't always get straight lines. The hardness of your brush can vary. If you change the size of it, you know, the hardness is going to change. And I feel like it's inconsistent, and I don't work well like that. So rather than do that, I'm going to show you the way that I would create this selection. Now, like I said, if you were doing waist up, somebody with their arms crossed, a pretty straightforward selection on a seamless paper, the quick selection tool would probably do a little bit better job. But because situations always aren't ideal, and I couldn't shoot him on seamless, so that's why this selection is not quite as good as it might be if we had. So I'm going to show you the way that I work around that. So I'm going to go ahead and select that mask, that layer and the mask that I just created, the blank layer, hold shift, and then take them, just press this trash can button. I'm going to get rid of them. Okay, so now I'm back to my original image. Okay. So I worked in the magazine industry for a few years when I started out as a graphic designer, and we did a sports magazine, and we did a lot of cutouts. So back in the old days, before the quick selection tool, cutouts were a lot harder, and you could use channels to mask, which is pretty challenging. And then another thing that we used a lot in the magazine industry is the pen tool. Now, the pen tool can be a love-hate relationship. There is a learning curve to using it, and people that don't know, that aren't familiar with it, that haven't used it very much, they can get frustrated fairly quickly with it. And it's understandable because it is kind of hard to learn how to use. But once you do get the hang of it, it is a tremendous tool. And the reason I like to use it is because it gives you nice, clean, straight lines, and you have 100% control over where your selection is. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use that right now. Okay, the keyboard shortcut to select it is the P key, or you can go over here and just select it right there. Okay, now when you select it, go up here to the top left. You want to make sure you're on path, right, not shape. Okay, so, and then also, see these little boxes here? Click those and make sure you're on combined shapes. Okay, always leave it on that. Okay, now, that way, when you're on the combined shape option there, you're going to create a shape around, you're going to trace around his whole body, and then you're going to go back in and cut out these little holes here where his shoelaces are, or maybe if his arms, like if he had his hands on his hips and there was a gap in here, you could cut that out. You won't have to change any settings, you just leave it how it is. Okay, that's why I always start out with combined shapes checked right there. Okay, all right, I'm going to zoom back in here. Now I shoot with a Nikon D800, so this is a 36 megapixel file. It's really big, there's a lot of detail in it. So I'm zoomed into about 500%. Before I got my D800, I had a D3S. I still have it, and it's only 12 megapixels. There's not nearly as much detail. I'd probably zoom into about 300%, but you want to make sure that you're zoomed in definitely past 100%, 200 at the least, I would say. But you want to be able to see all these little details in here and all these pixels, because you're going to basically, with the pen tool, you're going to trace around him, and that's going to create a path that you're going to be able to mask him with. And so that's why I was saying, with this tool, you're not going to get all that ghosting that we get with the quick selection tool. Now, the quick selection tool does need to be used in conjunction with this, and I use it a lot for people that have, that have flyaway hairs and that kind of thing, because it works really well for that. Details on clothes, but now his clothes here in this image, this is just, Nike dry fit clothes, so there's no real, you can't really see a lot of fabric detail around him. There's some, but it's not a lot. So maybe a little bit in his shorts down here, but maybe some leg hair. So we're going to try to pick up some of that. I don't know how much of it we're going to be able to get, but it's not really make or break. You don't have to do that with a picture like this. He has no hair in his head, so that's not a big deal. One thing I do see the pen tool's not going to do great with is his eyelashes and eyebrows. So maybe a little bit of arm hair here. So I'm going to show you, once we create our path, how to go back in, use the quick selection tool also, and help pick up some of that later. Okay, so let's zoom into 500%. Okay, so let's get started here with our path. Now you're going to want to trace just a little bit inside the line here. Don't go right on the line of his body, because if you do that, you're going to pick up some background, because this is going to pick up, the mask is going to pick up exactly what your path is. Okay, all right, so you want to trace a little bit inside. Now, like I said, this does take some getting the hang of, so it's not going to be 100% natural to you right when you first start. So, but I promise you, if you practice and give it a little bit of time, it is a great tool to know how to use. Okay, so I click my path. All right, so now what you're going to do is, and also I would suggest that if you're new to the pen tool, create your points kind of close together. That way you have more control over the angles, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Okay, so now if you click way down here and create a big angle, all right, I'm clicking and pulling to create these arms here, these anchor point, on the anchor point to move around to get my angle. I'm still holding here where I clicked. Okay, so now, that's a good angle right there. That's right inside his head. That's exactly what I want. I'm going to let go. All right, my next click, depending on how far I pulled those arms out, how sharp that angle is, that's gonna dictate what my next angle is like. So now if I just click here, see how that created that big angle there? That's too much. All right, I don't want that. All right, so that's why I'm gonna press Command Z and then hold Option Command Z to step back here, to go backwards. Okay, so that's why I think starting out especially, once you get more advanced, you can create more space in between your points to save time, but starting out, you're gonna wanna go pretty close together. So I'm gonna click here and drag, not too big of an angle, click here, and you're basically just gonna move around the image, going right inside the line, just like this. Okay, all right, just clicking and dragging, making sure you're staying inside, kind of tracing them here. Okay, now, I'm coming to a sharp change of direction here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and let's say I need to pull that out a little bit to make a little bit of an angle. Do that again, right there. Okay. All right. So I created an angle. With my next click, it's gonna see that's not going to be. It's going to have a little bit of a curve in there because my last point had a curve. I'm going to press Command Z to go back. So the way that you get around that is once you've created that point, you've got a sharp change of direction like that. You hold the Option key till that little caret comes up right there to the right of your pen tool. You're on the anchor point and click. See how that arm went away? See, I clicked Option click right on the anchor point, and now it's gone. Now you can go wherever you want with the next click. All right. Okay. So that's basically taking that next curve away. Okay. So I'm gonna keep going here. Keep tracing. And I know this seems like it's probably gonna be monotonous, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not fun, but I think to me it saves me time. I've done so many of these that it's kind of second nature to me now. And it's a lot faster for me to do this than try to go in and clean it up with the brush on a mask using the quick selection tool. Okay. Another thing you can do too is once you've created your curve here, so like I said, the Option tool, you can get rid of that next angle, or you can hold it. So you get that big caret now. If you mouse over these little arms, you can get rid of it like that. All right. You can change the angle on the right or the side that you're the other side. See, like that. This is holding the Option key. You can change your angle. Okay. All right. You can also hold the Command key, and it's the same idea when your white selection tool comes up, but it's good, and you can move your arms around here to change the angle, but it's going to move both of them at the same time. You can make one increase one, decrease one, whatever you need to do here. All right. Okay. All right. So now I've got a sharp change of direction again. I'm going to press the Option tool, get rid of that curve, keep going here. All right. Trace around it just like this. Okay. And also, if you don't click and drag, you're not going to have an angle. You can just click, and there's not going to be an angle there. All right. So really, you could probably just do this if you wanted to, starting out, and then the more advanced you get, now that's going to create sharp edges, so you probably don't want to do that. But on something like this, that's kind of like it's got a nice curved contour to it. But if it was something that was straight, then you could definitely do that. Okay, I'm going to keep going here, trace all the way around. Okay, so I'm not going to go around this whole image because I don't want you to have to sit here and watch me do that. Because I think I timed this one. It took me about 13 minutes to get all the way around it, which, you know, honestly, if I used the quick selection tool and then masked my picture and then went back in with the brush and fixed all that ghosting and those uneven edges, I guarantee you it would take me that long or longer. So that's why I use this as opposed, in a picture like this, as opposed to using just the quick selection tool. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to skip ahead here. I'm actually going to zoom back out. I'm not going to do this whole thing like I said, because I've already got my path created. I went ahead and did that so you don't have to watch me. I'm going to delete this path. Just press the delete key twice. All right, if you go to Window, Paths, you're going to see the little paths palette over here. And I've got my path already done. Now, when you create a path, it's going to be in italics. So you're going to want to double click on it and then name it, and then it'll save that path for you. Okay? Okay. So I've got my path of him already created. Now, what I did here, I'm going to zoom into his shoes. So I created the overall path around him. I closed it, completed it, and then I went back in with my pen tool again and traced in these little areas where I need to cut out where you can see the background. Okay? So now that my path is done, see it over here on the right, it's saved because it's not in italics. You can press Command, click on the thumbnail, and there is your selection. Okay? So that's going to give you a nice smooth selection around his whole body. It's going to be a pretty good extraction. Now, it's not going to pick up detail like up here if he had any hair on his arm or whatever. But we're going to do that with the quick selection tool. All right, so I'm going to press Command D to deselect this. All right, so what I'm going to do now my layer selected. I'm going to go back to my paths palette. I've got my path done. I've got it saved. I'm going to command click. All right, so now we've got our selection. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to press my W key to go back to my quick selection tool. I'm not going to change the selection. I'm going to keep it to what this path was. I'm going to go up here to refine edge. Okay, now see, there's a lot less ghosting going on here. Now there's still some, but that's okay. We're gonna fix that. See, I'm getting some arm hair here. This is the main thing I want. It says eyelash. So I'm gonna select my brush over here. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna paint this just to make sure we get that eyebrow. Now I don't want to go too far in to the image. I just want to kind of mouse over the edges here, clicking and mouse over the edges. So I'm painting over the parts that I want this tool to detect the edge. Okay, now see how that picked up his eyelash there? Okay, that looks really good, and that's going to help sell this composite, all right, as being more real. All right, you can also go over here to view and click reveal layers, and you can see the original. All right, I'm gonna go back to my overlay mode. And I'm just going to mouse over his arm hair here. Just like that. Okay. I'm going to press my space bar I'm going to hold it, and that's going to allow me to click and drag so I can go down here. All right, so he's got some leg hair here. Now, I can't guarantee this is going to pick all this up, but we're going to try. So I'm just going to paint over his leg hair. That may or may not, we may end up keeping that, we may not. I'm not 100% sure, but we're gonna go ahead and try to pick some of it up here. See what it looks like once we mask it. Okay, back here some. So like I said, this works really good when you have, a full head of hair, any kind of clothes that might have a lot of detail in them, that sort of thing. It's going to really do a good job in most cases of picking up the detail and stuff like that, rather than just having a smooth edge, which is, I'm going to show you in a minute. We're going to create another, we're going to create two layers, basically two masks. One of them is going to be with just the path, and one of them is going to be with this quick selection tool. Let's go in here and see what we can get here on his arm. Now see that, I don't think that really, well maybe yeah, it looks like it did. It picked up some arm hair there. Okay, go in here. So basically we're going to create a mask. We use the path to make our selection. We didn't mask it, then we went to refine edge, and we're trying to pick up all this detail. We're going to create a layer with the mask with the quick selection tool, and then we're going to create another layer with the path, which is going to be a smooth outline, and then we're going to erase these parts in the quick selection layer that we don't need. Okay, so I think that's most of the detail that I think I can probably get in this one. I'm going to press Command minus to zoom out. You can also press Command plus to zoom in. Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. So we're make sure we've got output set to new layer with layer mask and press OK. Okay, all right, so there we've got our mask using the quick selection tool. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this base layer back on. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to press Command J. That's going to duplicate that original layer. All right, I'm going to move to the top. All right, now I'm going to go back over to my paths, Command click, get my selection again, and I'm going to hit the mask button to mask it. All right, now I'm going to turn those other two layers off, press my Z tool to zoom in here. You can see that's a really hard path. All right, his skin is not going to be that sharp. Nothing is, as a matter of fact. Not even his shoes. That's just too hard of a line. So what you can do is everything's non-destructive in Photoshop CS6, which is really good because you can go back and change stuff later. So I'm going to double click on the mask. See your properties panel open up here. See this feather slider here? Go to about 0.8. And that's going to soften that edge at 0.8 pixels. See that now how much better that looks? All right, I'm going to close this. Okay, now I'm going to turn back on my quick selection layer. Okay, now we've got a smooth path. All right. See, we don't have the detail in his hair, like his eyelashes, arm hair. Okay. I'm going to name this path. It's always a good idea to name your layers. That way, if you need to go back later and see, how you did something, it's a lot easier if you get everything organized and named. All right. I'm going to name this one Quick Selection. Okay. All right. Turn it on. Okay, now, all right, so I've got both my layers. The extraction looks pretty good. We're going to have to refine it a little bit, but I'm going to wait to do that until we drop it into our background, which is going to be the next part, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do for now, I've got my quick selection layer selected. I'm going to press Command or Shift, select my other layer, and I'm going to press Command G. That puts them into a group, and I'm going to name this Cutout. Hit Enter. All right, so now I've got a group with both my layers in there. I've got the detail layer. We're probably going to end up taking some, we're going to erase some of that because you got some ghosting, or have to clean up a little bit. And then you've got your nice smooth path with the mask blurred 0.8 pixels, so it's nice and soft. Okay, so that is part one, the extraction. The second part, next part, is going to be how we prepare the background for the composite. One thing I wanted to add real quick before we move on is how you can kind of adjust the path while you're making it. So let's say we've made this path and we've gotten down to here, so we've got all this done already. And let's say we notice that we've made a couple points after this one, which is outside of where we want the selection. Well, you can go back and fix that on the fly while you're making your path. And the way to do that is you can hold the Command key, so a little white arrow comes up, make sure that little dot, that anchor point is highlighted, and then so it's filled in, because the others are empty here. So it's filled in, so then you can highlight it and then press the pen tool, still selected by the way, just press the arrow keys now, and you can move the point around like that. So now we're back inside. So let's say this one's too close to the edge, press the Command key, highlight it, you can move it around, up, down, left, right, move it where you need it. So, and then you can just go back, make sure you click on that last anchor point again, and then just keep tracing. So that's a way you can edit the path while you're still making it. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that before we move on to the background.